welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your host, Buddy Sotello Esquire and Evan Ginzburg. Evan, would you like to introduce our guest for tonight?
Absolutely. He is one of my all-time favorite guests. I've been doing radio and TV for 30 years. He's done my shows so many times, but tonight we have 1 hour alone with the inimitable Mr. Big. How are you tonight, Mr. Big?
God bless you. I love you guys. And I'm glad to be here. I really am. I'm glad to be anywhere, but I'm particularly glad to be here tonight.
Well, I hope that you had a good holiday like the rest of us did. Not too much turkey, I hope, for you, and not too much stuffing.
No, it turns out that a fellow that I worked with on Saturday he sent me a message on Wednesday to tell me that he was tested positive for COVID and that I should, maybe have a test or whatever. So I'm quarantining for the next 2 weeks. I was supposed to go see my son and his fiance on Thanksgiving, and unfortunately, I wound up spending it at home alone, protecting myself and protecting them, really. I got no symptoms. Screw,
well, you didn't catch it from us. You didn't catch it from us.
I don't think I caught it at all. Okay, but, better safe than sorry. You know what I mean, fellas? It's a better thing. Because I may be a heel, but I'm not an asshole. I am certainly not going to, possibly be a carrier. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like one of them COVID Marys.
Anyone could be. Anyone could be asymptomatic and carry it over to somebody. So it is very responsible. I appreciate what you're doing. Yeah, right now, it's been terrible. Like I
said, I'm not an asshole,
Yeah. No,
Mr. Big, Buddy is 3,000 miles away in California, but we still don't want you to breathe too close on the camera, okay?
No, I promise. I'm good. You want me to put the mask on? I will, but then the people can't see my pretty face,
That's right. That's right. That's why you're on tonight.
So, Mr. Big, tell us about how you got started in professional wrestling.
I got started in professional wrestling because, truthfully, I was egged on. I was an outsider. I was a fan that, because of Gorgeous George and guys like Johnny Valentine and guys like Angelo Poffo, these are the guys who kind of drew me into being interested in wrestling. Gorgeous George, I was watching him on a little round screen TV. Evan, you might remember, the little 9-inch Philco TV in the living room. Right? I was the remote control, by the way.
That's right.
Father used to say to me, change the channel, change it to 2, change it to 4, change it to 5, 7, or 11. That was it. Well, fortunately, I didn't have too many numbers I had to deal with. But I got in from watching it on that little screen and saying, I could do that. And then growing up with a real tough guy, my father. That was a real tough guy. I emulated him. I really did.
Tell us about him. Tell us about your dad.
My dad is one of the toughest guys that you never met. An honest, hardworking son of a gun. Started out in his youth being a pretty bad guy, gambling, running around, whoring, the whole thing.
Like my dad.
Yeah, your father. Your father was a nice nebbish. He was working the cab and.
Oh, my father's nose was broken 7 or 8 times in fist fights. He was all city basketball. He was a tough balling guy. He won a bet that he could get laid 30 times in 30 nights, and he won. That was my dad.
My dad was the nebbish. My dad was the good Jewish doctor who never did anything crazy in his life. So my dad did all this, and he still managed to raise a professional wrestling manager as a son. So this goes to show you.
My father never knew. My father didn't live long enough, unfortunately, to see me work the wrestling ring. But I really know he would have been proud of me, because my character is true to my soul, is true to my being, is true to me, and true to him. He was, like I said, the toughest guy I knew. He wore a fedora, he smoked a cigar, and he didn't matter where, when, or how. He was going to smoke a cigar when he felt like it, to the protests of everybody around him. Very tough guy. Give you a couple of examples. Three guys tried to rob his gas station. Three guys wound up in court in front of Judge Leibowitz, who was known as the hanging judge in Brooklyn. And they were the plaintiffs. My father was the defendant. They came in with neck braces, with casts, body casts, arms, legs. One guy came in a wheelchair. The Leibowitz was ready to bury my father based on my Uncle Alfred's record as a Golden Gloves and a professional boxer. They said my father's hands were lethal weapons. They didn't know my father was much tougher than my Uncle Alfred. My father busted these three guys up and wound up being prosecuted in court. Fortunately, the company that owned the gas station, they defended, and the judge was at the end of all of it. He just said, well, I apologize, Mr. Wohl. He says, obviously, these, and my father was let go. But that's the kind of guy he was. He worked for Abe Rellis. Him and my Uncle Danny used to run booze from the Carolinas up north. And my father, and I can tell this now because we don't have to worry about the law anymore.
Prohibition, yeah, I think prohibition's ended.
I'm saying, and the years have gone by, so we don't have to do a statute of limitations. That's what I was looking for. That's expired. But he put an extra gas tank underneath the back seat of the, I guess you'd call it a sedan that they drove. And that 50-gallon gas tank was all full of booze. And the cops, although they got stopped plenty of times, never found it. He was invited one day. It was a cute story, as long as I'm going off on a tangent a little bit. He was invited by old Danny after a job. They just came back from Virginia, whatever it is, successful run. They had come back in there. They were wearing those peg leg pants and the watchman caps and the turtlenecks. They looked like merchant marines, merchant marine ninjas, really. They come back and are invited by a guy. He says, the boss wants to see you up in Manhattan. I forget the name of the hotel. It might have been the Roosevelt. And they were invited up to this thing, and they're thinking, we're dead. What did we do? How did we screw up there? What did we do? And the whole time, they're going out from Brooklyn to Manhattan, they're wondering what the hell they did. They told what room to go up to, and they knock on the door, and this guy opens up the door, and the guy is bigger than the door that opens the door. And he lets them in, and he says, you're here, fellas. Hey, the boss says, good job. Go eat, drink, be merry. I got to tell you something. They almost peed themselves from relief. But this is the kind of life they lived. They lived in Brownsville, which is where I was born, okay? And I went back there many times. But you learn to be tough when you're from Brooklyn, especially if you grew up in the days I grew up in the 50s and 60s. We were real tough guys. I'm OTG, original tough guy. I'm not one of these little gangsters with his pants below his ass and walking around with his underwear sticking out, and just looking ridiculous. I'm not one of those punks. I'm not a gangster. I'm the son of a guy who worked for gangsters, and I'm a real tough guy because my father was a tough guy and he taught me to be tough. So if you see me in the ring and you see me around the ring and you see me in an arena, I'm the same guy that you're talking to right now. The very same guy. I love kids. I love animals. I love women. I love old people. I'm against cancer. I'm against autism. I'm against a lot of things, but I'm still me. You understand? I still do what I have to do when I get around a wrestling ring to make my guy win or to do my best to help him win. And if I can't help him win, I'm going to help him maintain his dignity. It's not just winning. Sometimes it's helping the wrestler maintain his dignity and his proper position. So that's me. Okay, I grew up with a tough father. I grew up with a brilliant, loving mother who nurtured me and butchered me and took care of me. So I'm immortal, guys. I truly am immortal. How's that?
And if I may add, Mr. Big, as I was a manager too, what you really want is you want people to remember your man's match. You want to be able to to contribute enough to the match itself. You don't want to take away from the match, but you want people to remember, hey, this was Mr. Big's guy, and Mr. Big did this or Mr. Big did that to help this guy win or at least lose, but make it close, or maybe get DQ'd or something like that.
That's how. See, I talk about myself a lot. Evan knows that. I promote the hell out of myself, but I don't do it because I want to sell tickets for people to come, or have people buy tickets. I should say, come see me. Yes, to see what I'm going to do, to see who I'm bringing, to see what. But then all eyes turn to my wrestler. When I worked with Jim Neidhart, I didn't have to say anything about him. I just said we're showing up. When I said I'm working with Sabu, I didn't have to say a thing. We showed up. Jake Roberts, we showed up. Vader, we showed up. You understand? Working against Jimmy Snuka with King Kong Bundy. I didn't have to say a word. Just showed up. But it's different in the Indies. When I'm working with a guy like, for example, Sam Shields, my newest acquisition, the Galactic Warrior, this son of a gun. He's unbelievably strong. You could play the vibes or the xylophone on his abs. Yeah. Okay. He's in incredible condition.
What do you also?
Yeah.
I love this guy.
Before COVID.
Yes.
Right?
Continue.
I got this guy. Love this guy. Got a guy who I used to love, who we wound up wrestling Saturday. Ghost Shadow. Another guy. Great wrestler.
I know him. He's excellent.
So tell me your involvement.
I talk about these guys because if you don't know who they are, but when I get done, you're gonna know who they are. Sean Donovan, another guy I'm bringing in. Great. Worked with Dan Moff down in Florida for Frank Goodman. Worked for many years. Another guy I'm bringing in, Jenna Van Muscles. I am making a group, a faction, if you will, called the New Millennium Elite, the NME, the enemy. You dig?
Yeah.
And these are the people I'm putting in it. Okay, Jenna Van Muscles, beautiful and strong. Okay, Sam Shields, also beautiful and strong. Okay, Shane Donovan, tremendous wrestler in great shape.
Get him on the show here. One of these days, you should tell them to ask to be guests on the show. We'll give them
I'll get them all for you. You don't have to worry. Listen, when they see I'm on the show, they're all going to jump on the bandwagon and try to get with Buddy and Evan because they're going to find out that this is the place to be on a Saturday night.
You are good. You are good.
No, I'm with Buddy and Evan.
I like your promotional style. Can you tell me though how you got started in wrestling? Where your first opportunity came from, and how you built it into where you are today?
I can. It's a weird thing because I was an old man already by the time I got in. I was always hanging around with the boys from ECW, and when I say hanging around, I was in with them. They thought I don't know what they thought, but they accepted me right from the giddy up. John Pee Wee Moore, the referee who was friends with Sabu and Van Dam, and Bill Alfonso, said to me one day, well, I can't say, I really shouldn't say how he introduced himself to me, but I had a particular liking that was conducive to the friendship of Rob Van Dam and Sabu. He had the same life. So Don says to Petey says,
your voice is fading a little. Did you touch the mic?
I must have touched the mic. Anyway, the whole point was that Pee Wee knew that I liked the same things as Van Dam and Sabu and those boys. So he says, come backstage, meet them, and let's partake together. I'll leave it to your audience to figure out what we were partaking of.
It's legal now in California anyway, so don't worry about it.
It's going to be legal here soon, too. But the point is that we're hanging out, and this is how I met them. And I got to meet them and hang with them, and this was often, every time they were in New York, every time they were in Philadelphia, mostly in New York. P.S. I make friends with them, and finally Van Dam sitting there. Rob Van Dam says, why don't you get into this thing already? You're talking about it. Why don't you do something about it? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, do you think they want to see a guy my age wrestle? He says, well, then be a manager, but do something. Make up your mind what you want to do and do it. I went, Rob, that's the first coherent thing you ever said to me. And I did it. And I went and got trained. And let me tell you, I was 48 years old when I wrestled my first professional wrestling match. Now, I have wrestled in school, the collegiate way, and I've wrestled in the street, and I fought with my fists and boots and forearms and holds and grappling and everything else I can do. And that's why I got no scars on my face, a few busted knuckles on occasion, but I survived it all because I learned. And then I learned how to professionally wrestle, okay, with the right way so that I wouldn't hurt anybody. And then I wrestled a match or two.
Was that at the ECW school? Sorry for interrupting, but did you get trained at the ECW school?
I got trained by ECW guys. See, Chris Candido and Bam Bigelow and Balls Mahoney, and Homicide. Those are my main trainers, and a fellow by the name of Quiet Storm. Quiet Storm was exactly that, very quiet and a big storm. And he taught me how to, a lot of things, a lot of wrestling holds. Homicide beat the crap out of me every day, made me run the ropes 1,000 times, take bumps, throw myself down on my back and my face and my side. Everywhere. Balls Mahoney had me doing flip bumps. And Bam Bigelow was teaching me how to power out of things and how to wrestle. Awesome. So these are the guys who taught me. I've had other guys contributing. Look, Pete Sanchez was one of my biggest mentors. Johnny Rods. These are guys who polished me. And I was a manager already. You understand? But I know how to wrestle. If I got in the ring today, at my delicate age, I could still wrestle.
I wouldn't want to take you on.
It may not last long, but it'll look good for the 2 or 3 minutes I can stay in the ring.
I broke my shoulder earlier this year falling over my kid's scooter. So I'm done. And I also had a hip. I fell down my stairs in 2016 and broke my hip, and it's all been replaced with metal. So my days of doing anything ring-based other than...
You just got a new gimmick. You're the bionic buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And I have too much metal in me to make it through an airport scanner. I'm not adding any more, so I can't get through a court scanner either. So, I'm amazed at anyone over the age of 50 that ever wants to step in a ring. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stuff.
I'm a genuine tough guy, seriously. Look, I can hoke it up all you want, but I'm a genuine tough guy. Okay, I got hands bigger than your face. Okay, if I have genetics on my side. That's the best way to say it. I have genetics on my side. My father was a big man, big hands, strong enough to pick up an automobile transmission by himself in the shop. We worked in the shop. I'm working with my Uncle Howie in Sheepshead Bay, and I'm taking transmissions out and taking them apart. And 2 guys are like trying to carry a transmission over to the work table. My father says, "Get the hell out of here." Pushes them away, picks up the transmission, puts it on the table. So now get that out to work. See, I'm a product of genetics. So that I take advantage of that. And that's why I could call myself Mr. Big. And nobody, and I mean nobody, had the balls ever in almost 20 years to tell me, how dare you take the name Mr. Big? It was accepted by the biggest and best wrestlers in business. And I've been that way since. So if you're
my role model was Andy Kaufman, so you should get more of an idea of
heel of all time without even hesitation. He may not have been a great wrestler, but he was the single greatest heel of all time, the most consistent, the most hated. And if that guy had any kind of body, oh my God, he would have made $1 million a year for his whole career.
He had the best psychology. He knew how to make people hate him more than just about anyone in the history of professional wrestling.
He cut a series of promos. He cut a series of vignettes, we'll call them, not promos because they were longer than, talking to people down south about how to wash themselves.
I'm from L.A. They're called I'm from L.A. And it was, for me, a blueprint of how to become a heel manager. I watched I'm from L.A. before I would get into the wrestling business in all pro wrestling, because that for me was like a how-to, step-by-step or paint-by-numbers way of becoming a heel.
For those who don't know, Andy Kaufman would go, "This is a bar of soap. This is anti-deodorant, and he would just taunt the Southern fans. It was great.
Yeah. Lecture on the use of toilet paper.
Use a bar of soap, get it wet, rub it on your body, all over your body. And the accent, when he did the accent, the ridiculing the Southern accent, the guy was brilliant. Yeah, he wasn't brilliant in every single thing he ever did, but in wrestling, he was accepted by Jerry Lawler. You understand? No matter what you say, in or out of the business, if you're accepted and brought into a program with one of the earningest professionals in the business, I may not like Jerry Lawler one way or the other, but that guy was an earner, okay? And if he accepted you, you were the real deal. He accepted Andy Kaufman, and that's what made it crazy, because people didn't think, they said, he don't belong here, he don't belong here. That's perfect. You can't get better than that. You understand?
I loved it.
If people hate you and they want to kill you, you can't get better than that. When I walk in this ECPW arena, that's a joke in itself. When I walk into one of these little schools or churches, and the kids are throwing sodas at me. The kids, the little biscuits, are throwing sodas at me. These little bishes. And the one kid made me turn around, and he takes a whole box of popcorn, pops it right in my face, screaming at me with his little fingers, little middle fingers up. I don't know where his parents were, who taught him those social graces. But that, to me, was a successful show.
Yes.
That's what it is. I've been screamed at, yelled at, threatened, you name it. Okay, don't care. Because if they did have the balls to come up to me, I could handle myself. But just the fact that I was so hated, that made everything. And yet, I got fans. That's the sickest thing. That's the problem with today's fans. You don't want to be a fan of the heel. Privately, shh. Don't tell anybody you like Roddy Piper, or don't tell anybody you like Freddie Blassie. Don't tell anybody, you know what I mean, that you like the Iron Sheik. Shh. Don't say it. Love him, but don't make it, because then you're ruining the guy's gimmick, Then all of a sudden everybody loves the Iron Sheik. Come on. Now it's okay. He's out of wrestling. But, when he was in, you had to hate him. So let him love him when I leave.
Tell me about when you were a manager, or as a manager now, how you scout out the talent you want to work with, and what makes you determine who you want to have as part of your stable or your collection of men.
Now, that's a good. I don't know how good a question that is.
Your mic.
I said people don't know how good a question that really is, because in the wrestling business, you are told who you're working with. Okay, that's really a fact. That's what people know. Except that that's not so with me. I tell the promoter, whoever that promoter is, who I'm working with. Why? Because I'm the manager of champions, and I'm the champion of managers for real. So I'm not letting any pissant promoter, and I don't care who he is, tell me who I'm working with and who I'm not working with. I'm the anomaly in this business, and I still get paid, and I'm still booked, and they still respect it. They say to me, so Big, who you managing tonight? Okay. That's the way it is.
And then who do you select? What makes you determine who you want to work with?
I select the biggest and the best. That's what I select. Okay, I select a guy who's there, who needs my help, who has the potential to make good use of my help. I'm not going to take a guy who's floundering or a woman who's floundering and has no possibility of getting better, because I don't cast pearls before swine. I give the benefit of my tutelage and guidance, my vast knowledge and experience, to the people who deserve it. And the people I've been looking for these days are built like I don't know how to say it, like a brick shit house. Is that the best way to say it? I'm talking about built where you look at it and say, I'm not knocking that down. So like I said, Sean Donovan, you look at him, built a muscular, strong guy, a guy I can work with. Okay? Guy like Sam Shields, a muscular, strong, athletic guy I can work with. Jenna Van Muscles, muscular, strong, beautiful, somebody who has talent. That's who I work with. I've worked with, as I said, Van Vader. I worked with Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake still wears my shirt to this day. I worked with King Kong Bundy. I worked with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I worked with Sabu. I worked with Rhino. I've worked with the best. I'm a combination of Freddie Blassie, Lou Albano, Bobby Heenan, my man, the Grand Wizard. I'm a combination of all of them. Okay, but I am me. I took myself and made myself even bigger than I am. And it's Raw's wrestlers to me. You know how many people have asked me, Big, can you wrestle me? Big, can you? I said, how tall are you? I'm 5 foot. No, I'm sorry. I'll give you the name of the guy. How much do you weigh? 100. Oh, thank you. Thank you anyway. And I'm not talking about women. I'm talking about men. Oh, 150 pounds. Good. Sorry, can't use you. Can't help you. Because that's not my division. I'm not in the midget wrestling. Yeah, I said it. 150 pounds, 5'5", you're a midget. That's the way I look at it. Right, Evan?
Yeah, generally. I mean, I have a question that just popped in my head. You have managed thousands of guys over the years. You've been doing this a long time.
Let's say hundreds of guys over the years.
Hundreds. Hyperbole. Okay, so did you ever see a kid that you just said, wow, this kid's got it, and later on, years later, he did make it? Anybody come to mind?
Yeah. One of my buddies, Matt Stryker. We were in the locker room many times at USA Pro Wrestling. I love the guy. Listen, if I was a woman, I would have tried to hit on him. A handsome guy, beautiful talker, not the biggest guy. See, that was the problem. He didn't have height, but he was built. He was good looking, and he could talk, and he could wrestle. One of the other guys, by the way, that came in, to help train me, but was there more as a friend than anything else. I told him.
Your sound.
You hit your mic again.
He said, son of a gun, Matt, Vince is going to call you one of these days soon. I have a feeling. And he laughed, and he didn't tell me that he had already been in touch with Vince. There was that whole article about the teacher supposedly stealing money from the New York City Department of Education because he was taking sick time to go wrestle. He was taking sick time, and he wasn't taking the money. He was just taking the time off, and he was go wrestling dark matches against Kurt Angle, a few other guys in WWE. But I didn't know this at the time, see. But I knew that he was going to be a star. And star he became, and he's on many DVDs doing the commentary and doing, he's the host of a couple of DVDs. That's big time. Guy was an announcer on TV. That's big time. And I knew he was going to go to the big time. Guy like Eddie Kingston. If you look at a video from my show, Big Pro Wrestling, Homicide, my King of New York, worked for me. Knew he was going to TV, not just Ring of Honor. I knew he was going into the big time. Okay, and he did. Eddie Kingston, standing right behind him, also knew about him. And I'm going to make a prediction that if Julius Smokes don't get into TV wrestling, either Ring of Honor or NWA or the WWE, the wrestling business is going to close down. Okay,
well, we heard it here first. That's always good to
Julius Smokes. He is one of my favorite managers. The guy was a good wrestler. And the guy's one of the best managers ever in the Indies. He was in Ring of Honor. The guy is tremendous. And I predict that he is either going to become a star in WWE or Ring of Honor or one of the TV companies, or the wrestling business is going to go out of business. One of those.
And yet managing as what we know it, you and I know it, in the WWE is pretty much dead. I mean, who can you really say has been an effective manager other than maybe Paul Heyman, over...
Dead until Julius Smokes gets in there or I get in there. Then all of a sudden you're going to see how the trend will be to have managers again. The trend will be to shut guys up like Roman Reigns who can't talk. He just barely can wrestle.
Braun Strowman.
Loves him. You can't say a bad word about Braun Strowman. You know why?
He's not a mic worker.
Matters. He don't need to talk.
No, but with a good manager, he'd be probably even better. He'd be probably more effective.
He would be amazing. He would be a superstar. That's what certain guys need, is a manager to become a superstar. Keep your mouth closed. Let everybody think you're the best thing since ever. Okay, instead of opening your mouth and they go, oh, no, that's him. You understand, you can't do it. Roman Reigns should never open his mouth, ever.
I have a hard time arguing that.
To eat. Not even
I agree with that too.
Fed intravenously. The Superman punch, a joke. I've never seen. I watch SmackDown. I don't see wrestling for 20 minutes. I don't see a drop of wrestling, and then when I see it, I'm ready to throw up.
Yeah.
That's funny because I just watched SmackDown the other night and I felt exactly the same way. I had to turn it off because it was an interview that just was not ever going to end, and I couldn't take it any longer.
The women wrestlers, some of them have potential, but as soon as they start doing the flippies, the flips, and that they don't wrestle. But then as soon as Natalia starts pounding on whoever she was working, all of a sudden that got believable. They have some good talent. They just don't know how to use it. And that's the problem. Nobody, I don't really think, is agenting these matches. You know what an agent is? Not a guy who collects 10% for representing you. An agent is a guy who says, no, don't do that. No, do this. All right, do this for 2 minutes. All right, you know what I mean? He's the guy or the woman who's telling them, here's the flow. Here's what you got to do. You want to get some attention. You want to get, attract the right attention. Don't do that and do this.
Yeah, micro booking. It can help, at least if someone understands psychology enough to be able to micro book a match like that, because a lot of these kids don't have that kind of background, and they just, everything is a finishing move. There's no in between chain wrestling or any kind of storytelling that goes on the ring. It's just,
that's another thing. There's no chain wrestling going on anymore. It's all and it's not even realistic fighting. It's a lot of, I don't know, pap. It's a lot of more hype than substance, and that bothers me, because there's guys in there that know how to wrestle. If they would only incorporate it, might be good. And they pander to a non-existent crowd. They come out. Yeah, I know that the false faces are supposed to on the screens are supposed to represent the audience, right? And all those sounds, where are they coming from? Or the fan sounds, are they coming from there?
Speakers, yeah.
The speakers. Terrible. I'd rather it be quiet. Yeah. I'd rather be nobody there and make a real drama. Have them come in and say, well, there's nobody for you to look at except me. So let's start wrestling. Stop the nonsense. Don't look around. There ain't nobody going to help you. And that would be real drama to me. Two big guys getting in the ring, or two women slapping the shit out of each other and pummeling and wrestling. And when they finish, one looks dead and the other one has her hand raised. That's what I want to see. We're all in lockdown. Let's feel like we're in lockdown. Let's make this underground wrestling, all concrete around there. Make it look like it's in a cellar somewhere.
This is good, because a lot of people don't have thoughts as to, when we say, where is the future headed? What is it going to take to try to get out of this COVID funk that we're in? It's nice to have someone with some solid ideas. A lot of people shrug their shoulders and just say, well, wrestling's going to die.
I think Evan would like. You take once a month, you take SmackDown or Raw, because you got 4 or 5 shows a month, right? So one of those shows you do on a movie set. And it's similar to the Boneyard or whatever they did with Undertaker. But you do it on a movie set, you film it with movie cameras. And you have a story. And it just so happens that the story is these tough guys are walking through an area where whatever, and they meet up with other tough guys, and fights ensue along the way. And you can do that for 2 hours. You don't need a storyline. You just need incidents and things to happen. And you're in the setting, and you can use the props, and you can use everything you want, and you have the setting around you. So that's what makes the story, right? You can try that, or just fucking wrestle. There's so much talking. Let's wrestle.
You know what I would like to see during this COVID era is take a 2-hour SmackDown and showcase new talent instead of Randy Orton for 15 years. Showcase some of these guys who are underutilized. Tell us their backstory. Get us interested in them as real athletes and real human beings. Who is this kid? What makes him tick? What makes him or her special? And also, why not show classic footage that's sitting in a vault that we haven't seen? You know, somebody dies like Kamala. Let's see something from 40 years ago, 30 years ago that we haven't seen, etc. So on. And use that 2 hours to do something different, something, you know, it all feels like so vanilla to me, WWE, for the most part.
You're 100% right. I would, on every single show, there's so many wrestlers that died over the years, especially recently. And, you know, by the way, I hope people realize that when people get older, you know, nobody lives forever. I like to think I'm immortal, but nobody lives forever. So older guys are going to die.
I was lucky to make it through this week. Just into my commute. You know, you'd be amazed to know I made it through the week. But continue.
But you know, like you were saying, I would take 20 minutes out of every 2-hour episode, and I would run a dedication to a different wrestler. You have so many you can run, you know, and you can start with the 50s and work your way up to the 2020. Okay, and you'd have 20 minutes worth of content that you don't have to do anything but edit slightly. That's all. It's all there. It's all
there. Do you think
there.
that the WWE is kind of embarrassed about its past in some ways, with the way that it sort of just pushes that stuff to the side and tries to make everyone focus?
Here's their thinking, and listen, I'm not a genius. I like to think I am, but this to me makes perfect sense. Get rid of the old so it's not distracting. Bring in the new and sell the new, sell the new, sell the new, sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, push it, sell it, sell it, sell it, merchandise, because you can't make a dime off an Angelo Poffo doll that does sit-ups. You understand? If I see merchandise, you can't sell Angelo Poffo, you can't sell a Johnny Valentine. I'm going to make you believe I'm real doll.
But you look at other sports.
Maybe you could sell to a select audience, a niche audience. I'd buy a Johnny Valentine doll before a Miz doll.
Yeah, I know you would. But you're one. I'm one. Buddy's one. That's 3 of them. They just sold some dolls.
Many of us.
They just sold 3. That's 3. And we're going to all be too old to buy stuff at some point.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, can you imagine?
I'm not saying it's right.
Can you imagine the NBA not wanting to talk about Michael Jordan? Can you imagine the NFL not wanting to talk about Joe Montana? You know, can you imagine baseball not wanting to talk about Hank Aaron or Cy Young? You know,
so for WWE, it's Hulk Hogan, it's Roddy Piper. There's 5 or 6 guys that they'll talk. Andre the Giant. You understand? There's the Undertaker. That's a new one that'll be forever. There's those guys. You know, instead of Sandy Koufax, you got the Iron Sheik. Okay, instead of Whitey Ford, you got a Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying? There's certain people that they make their forever heroes, and the other ones, goodbye. It's done.
Absolutely.
Time, you're gone.
Yeah, Ivan Koloff is still waiting for his call from the grave for the WWE Hall of Fame. You know,
Koloff today is a better wrestler than 50% of their roster on both SmackDown and Raw today.
Yeah, and you know that it's so weird to see the WWE really disengage itself from the history, because when you look at like the NWA as fledgling a program as it is, they really connect themselves back with the history of the NWA belt, and they're very proud of it. Whereas the WWE, you'll never hear anything about Pat Patterson. You'll never hear anything about Peter Maivia. You know, without Peter Maivia, you don't have The Rock. Without Rocky Johnson, you don't have The Rock. But when Rocky Johnson died, they barely talked about it.
I got a piece of trivia for you guys. I didn't notice until recently. Bruno's #1 opponent, I assumed it was Kowalski or maybe George Steele. No, it was Waldo Von Erich. They wrestled hundreds and hundreds of times, the most.
Barely even know Waldo Von Erich ever wrestled in the WWE.
Yeah, so Waldo Von Erich dies, he didn't get mentioned. He didn't get mentioned. Imagine the money this guy drew for them. Right?
That's Vince's thinking. Vince is the new broom sweeps clean. Get it through your head. Read his books. He's very clear on it. He's very clear on it. And Evan, you put out a post the other day, and I answered about it, about how he's doing certain things. I said, remember something. It's not a public organization. It's a private company. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. And you can't be mad at him for it, because if you're mad at him, don't buy his product. If he changed the formula for the egg cream, would you go into his pharmacy and sit at the counter in the drugstore and order an egg cream there? No. You'd go to some other place.
I would ask that you add eggs to it so that at least it made sense. Those of us on the West Coast don't understand the egg cream.
Okay. You go to a place and they make you pizza and you don't like the guacamole they put on it.
Now that is a great comeback.
Pizza. Well, you're going to go to another place that knows how to apply guacamole to a pizza, to your Hawaiian pizza.
Oh, no. I draw the line at that.
All right,
California doesn't mean I eat pineapple on pizza.
All right, but if they make you a mojito in your favorite bar, and now all of a sudden the mojito changes, you're not going to drink that drink anymore, or you're going to find a new bar to make your mojito.
Well, more and more people are abandoning the WWE. The ratings have never been lower, and somehow Vince still is making money and making sure that,
Evan, how's the merch sales for WWE? You think they're losing a dime?
Oh, he made record amounts of money during the COVID after he let go dozens and dozens of wrestlers and employees. The guy's swimming in money. Yeah. But the ratings are down.
Guy's got 1,000 wrestlers at any given time at his fingertips. What does he care if he sent Kurt Hawkins or whoever he sent, or Gallows or this one, that one, he sent them back? And who cares, really? I mean, I do to a point, but who really cares? Baseball players, is it the same as it ever was when you knew who was going to be on the team for the next decade? No, it's not the same anymore. Athletics, I didn't say sports. Athletics has changed. It's who's hot today, who can help me today. Let's trade him. Let's get rid of him. Let's bring somebody else in. I don't agree with it. Because, like Brett Gardner, for example, love him as a Yankee. Love him. Should never get rid of him. But they have other thoughts from time to time. That's why there's always a debate every year. Do we keep Brett or we get rid of him? Do we keep him? Same thing with wrestling. Same thing with hockey. Same thing with basketball. It's every sport and every athletics is the same. Get what's going to sell tickets and get rid of what's not going to sell tickets. Shame. Because they don't know what's going to sell tickets if they stuck with it.
I also want to find out a little bit more about like some of your own matches. What would you say is like the greatest match that you managed and the outcome of the greatest match that you managed?
My favorite two matches, it's not necessarily my best two matches because I've had some indie matches that have been really wicked and crazy, and with USA Pro Wrestling, with guys coming flying out of the ring. I've had some great stuff and great experiences, but my two favorite matches were when I managed King Kong Bundy versus Jimmy Snuka, and when I managed Jim Neidhart versus Norman Smiley. Those are really my two favorites for a lot of reasons. The one with Neidhart was in the locker room was hysterical. We were hysterical. We were standing talking, and Kevin Sullivan sticks his head in between me and Jim and sticks his head up and looks up and he goes, he's never going to get this, right? There were just so many jokes flying around. And yet the match in front of, 8 or 12 people down in Florida, it was Frank's first show. And it was really, we were in a building that the night before there was a shooting outside the building. It used to be a correctional center, and now it's a recreation center. So all the odds were against us, but yet we had a vociferous crowd. And the match, if you would have just put an audience in, could have been on any WWF/WWE TV show any year, anytime, because it was run just like that. It was really an ideal match. Neidhart used me as a manager the way you're supposed to use a manager. and it worked out beautifully. And I had a ball. Plus, it was one of the most professional things that I had been privileged to be part of. King Kong Bundy versus Jimmy Snuka started out with me standing in the ring with Bundy and berating Jimmy. When I say berating, I'm talking about I was verbally killing him. I told him that he should have gotten more than just a concussion from Roddy Piper hitting him with a coconut. I said his brains, half of his brains are in the locker room still. Every time he walks, he's got to hold his hand on his head, make sure his brains don't leak out. Calling him a monkey out of the jungle. Telling him I got a bunch of bananas for him if he only just doesn't come out. I abused him for a good 3-4 minutes. When he came out, he couldn't even look at the crowd. He had a face away from the crowd. And I'll explain to you privately why, but suffice to say, I was so good on the mic that he couldn't even look at me. You understand? He couldn't address the crowd. He couldn't do anything. He came out, and I bailed. I mean, I knew he was going to kill me. Anyway, the match goes the way it's supposed to go, you know. I'm outside the ring. I ain't going to get in the ring with Snuka and Bundy. They know what to do. They wrestled hundreds of times before that. Anyway, near a spot I see I could take advantage, I get up on a ring apron. And Jimmy is now kind of debilitated on the ropes. So I underhook him. And I'm holding him for Bundy. Bundy sees it, turns around, goes back to the other ropes. Now, this is a 20-foot ring. This is a full-size ring. And now you got 405 pounds of King Kong Bundy Express, like a big train coming at us. And I'm trying to figure out a way to slip out. And Jimmy ain't letting me slip out of the underhook. He slips out. Bundy hits me from, and I told the story before, from head to knees, from my forehead to my knees. He hit me, all of him hitting all of me. Sent me into the second row. Wow. Okay, that wasn't it. We weren't done. They continued to wrestle.
You guys didn't call that spot? That was just something that just happened?
Something that happened. I looked at Bundy. I said, I'm going to get him. And I got up on the ring apron, underhooked him. Bundy took him, saw what was going to be. He said, good. But he didn't know, and Jimmy slipped out. And Jimmy was slippery. Let me tell you something. Guy is great. He really got out of the way. And I'm son of a bitch, but I don't even have time to get the son of a out of my mouth. I'm going, son, bang. That's it. Bundy, big. We were one for a second. We were actually melded together. Chemically, we were fused.
I was once avalanched by the 450-pound ice box in the corner. So I know exactly what you're talking about as far as like when two people atomically meld in a spot.
So hard. I couldn't control anything. There was nothing I could do. I just flowed through the air with the greatest of ease. I landed in the second row on some broad's lap, collapsed the chair. When I got up, I looked at the guy. I said, yeah, she likes me. Anyway, the end of the match, I get in the ring because there's something going on. I get in the ring to help Bundy, and Bundy bails on me. He leaves me in the ring with Snuka. Suffice to say, I couldn't get out. I tried. I tried to get out. I couldn't. And Jimmy grabbed me, and he held on to me and wouldn't let me go until he headbutted me. I thought he broke my forehead. I really did. I thought he broke my fucking skull.
Wow.
I'm laid out. I'm not unconscious, but everything is like, you know, I was hearing things, you know, and seeing things. And the next thing I see is a shadow over me. A shadow.
Death drop on you?
Imagine, if you will, like a flying fox, you know, one of them bats, them, you know, them flying squirrel. That's what I'm picturing. Rocket J squirrel, the flying squirrels. Like somehow, and the next thing I know, I got Snuka landing on me with that big splash. I got to tell you something, never felt anything like it since. Never felt anything like it before or since. So those two matches were my favorites. Another favorite was when Jake Roberts screwed me. He put his teeth in my shirt. I'm getting ready to give him my shirt to put on to go help me get over a little bit in the ring. He don't take it. He looks at the shirt, takes his teeth out of his mouth, puts his teeth in his shirt, and runs into the ring, takes his boot off, beats the shit out of the guy, comes back, and I hand him the shirt. He takes the shirt with the teeth in it, and that was my match. He still wears that shirt to this day.
Wow. That is something.
Yeah, I guess it makes up a little bit for me not getting a spot that night. But, I still got paid. Hey, got paid, didn't have to do anything. I guess that's all right. And I got a story to tell out of it, too.
Now, have you ever gotten any serious injuries from working in the ring?
The only thing that ever happened to me was training with Balls Mahoney. He had me as a 48-year-old man doing flip bumps. You know what a flip bump is?
Oh, yes. I'm very familiar with a lot of it.
You don't know what a flip bump is. You're standing. You're looking in one direction, straight ahead of you. And the next thing you know, your head is bowing down, your feet are coming over your ass, and you're laying on your back, the canvas. That's a flip bump. It's not something any normal human being should really know how, should have to know how to do. But Balls figured, you do flip bumps. And I snapped whatever that tendon is that goes between your neck and your shoulder. I popped that. I forget what that tendon is called. I popped that and I said, Balls, I think I'm gonna chill for a little while. And that was it. I didn't do another flip bump after that. But that's the only injury that I ever sustained, ever. I got a stinger once. Al Snow brought me in over the top rope unceremoniously, and I got a stinger. In my neck.
Those are brutal. Those are brutal. I got one too.
Seconds. It gave Al time to count 1, 2. Stamping his feet, and then when I got up, after he got to the 10 count, and I got up, he looked at me and shook his head. "Oh, don't worry, baby." And I went, "Don't worry, you're not gonna hurt me." He went, "No," and then he hit me in the balls with head. All right,
boy.
So don't worry, baby. No, you're all right. You're right. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, all right. You're not gonna hit me? No, I'm not gonna hit you. Bang! I got a head to the balls. That was another good match. I got a lot of good ones. A lot of good ones.
Yeah, I remember my stinger moment. That was I wasn't getting up or trying to wrestle anything after I got my stinger. It's not, you see football players shake it off, but when you're an average wimp like myself, a stinger is the kind of thing that bugs you for weeks on end. I
was lucky. Like I said, I have good genetics, so I shook it off. I felt it for a little while in the locker room, but I was at a little warm compress on my neck, a little cold compress, a little warm compress. I was fine. I went home fine. I got laid that night. I got laid that night good, too. Evan, let me tell you something. Evan never wrestled ever that I ever saw, and yet creates heat just by walking in the ring.
Yeah.
And got the keys to the limousine. He's waving them, saying, you'll never get in this ring. You'll never get in I'll never drive you. Amazing how people hate him. And he's so lovable. Yet he puts on his Kato gear, and for those of you who don't know, I'm talking about Bruce Lee in the
Green Hornet.
Green Hornet, he was Kato. He played Kato. Brilliant, Evan. Really was. And you know what?
With Chris Michaels and Simply Splendid Bobby C. Yeah, we have fun.
Well, Mr. Big, we come to the very difficult part of the show, which is me having to tell people that their hour is almost up. And I can't believe it because it seems like we've just touched the very surface of some of the great stuff you have to say.
Plugs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm trying to bring this up so we don't run out of time. So you have a chance to plug the things that you're working on and the wrestlers you're working with and the promotions you're working on and how our fans can get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you with social media. So plug away, please.
Personally, they go to, you can go to Jon Wohl 1, JONWOHL 1 on Facebook. You'll know it's me because it's got my picture. Okay, you can also go, which I would prefer, go to New Evolution Wrestling on Facebook. We have a page. We also have a group. You want to join the group? Yeah, I'll probably let you. See the page. We got a lot of great content on there. I also have a page called Gina Snipsky, GENASNIPSKY. That's kind of a rib on Gene Snitsky. Okay, and it's a private rib, but it's a public rib, and there's a lot of good content there. There's Mr. Big, MR.BIG, Pro Wrestling page on Facebook. As I said, the New Evolution Wrestling page. New Evolution Wrestling, Rob Saint, great promoter. Okay, I work with him very closely with booking. Stephen Person helps with booking. We have a great company. We just put a couple of matches on Facebook. We'll be back strong in 2021 with live shows and CCW. That's Colossal Championship Wrestling. We're affiliated with them too in a major way. Atlantic City, New Jersey, February 27th at the Showboat Hotel and Casino. Hey, Evan, I made the big time.
There you go. There you go.
I used to run CCW, but it was California Championship Wrestling. So the name's been around, the initials have been around, but a completely different fit.
This is Colossal Championship, but there's also Coastal Championship Wrestling. But we're Colossal Championship Wrestling, and most importantly, New Evolution Wrestling.
If you need a belt, though, if you need to borrow a belt that has the word CCW on it, I can get you one for cheap. I've got one for you cheap. Anyway, we're just about out of time here. Evan, do you have any last questions you'd like to ask Mr. Big?
Mr. Big, what are you proudest of all these years in wrestling?
My son. I'm proudest of my son. That's what I'm proudest of. He has never failed to make me proud, and he continues to do so. And I love him, and God bless him. And he just got a new place to live with his fiance, and he's doing very well with his work. I want to keep him, his life private, but that's the thing.
Is he involved in wrestling at all? Does he get involved in wrestling at all?
Yeah, I used to take him to ECW, and he loved it. And then when I got into wrestling, he liked the idea. But he's got his own life. He's doing very well, working for the city of New York, and he's big enough to be a wrestler, but he don't have that temperament or the desire. And that's.
Does he have any kids?
No children. So if I'm a grandpa someday, great. If I'm not, I still
maybe it skips a generation, so you never know. Yeah, no, your next generation, one more generation, you might hit the payload. So, you never know.
You never know it, but I'm not worried about it. I made enough of a name in wrestling, and I'm not done yet. If I have my way, maybe Vince will give me a lifetime contract, because I'm going to say to Vince, hey, Vince, how long could it last?
Yeah. Excellent. So, do you have any other words that you'd like to give?
I want to thank you guys. Shut up a second. I want to thank you guys to everybody out there. Buddy, Evan, thank you. You let me talk. You let me just go on, and I appreciate it. I mean that. If not for you guys, how am I going to get heard out there? So you keep up the good work. I'll try to get you some more guys to be interesting on your show. Tell them to call you up and make contact with you. Maybe we'll even get Robert Saint, to do the next one. Got to have him talking. But New Evolution Wrestling, that's the company to watch. Everybody wants to be us. Everybody wants to be us. We're affiliated with XPD. We're affiliated in Puerto Rico, Texas, Tennessee, up in the New England area.
Come to California. I can get you booked out here. Bring your folks out to California sometime on a Northern California tour, and I'll get you guys booked out here.
Nice. Yeah, I tried talking to Dave Marquez, but Carmine DeSpirito and, there's a whole storyline behind that.
I've got better bookers for you than Gabe Martinez. I guarantee you that.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
We'd love to have you out here. We'd love to have you on the show again. Maybe next year we can have your entire menagerie part of a Skype call. That would be really exciting.
Yeah. Let me just throw in one thing. There's going to be a big article on Mr. Big in Pro Wrestling Post, and we want to thank Mark Madison for his support of the show.
Yeah, and him printing my article about Mark Smith last week. Really want to thank him for that. That was a wonderful contribution too. So we really appreciate having you. We really want to have you again as a guest in the future, and certainly have a great holiday season and be safe like you have been.
Listen to me. I know you had a good Thanksgiving. Have a happy and a healthy Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year. Just stay healthy. You're doing a great job, guys. Keep it up. I'm watching you. You falter. I'll tell you falter. You'll know about it from me.
There's a folding chair with our names on it. We know it. We know it. Thank you, Mr. Big.
Listen to me. Do I need a folding chair with this?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't need a folding chair. Don't worry about it. I love you guys. Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. Great being had.
Have a great night, and we'll see everyone next week. Good night, everyone.
Forward to seeing you, seeing us.
Thank you.